Hey and welcome to this video tutorial. This time we're going to talk about the percussive fingerstyle technique, but specifically for absolute beginners who simply want to give it a try. All you need for this lesson is the ability to play bar chords. So if you're already comfortable with those, we can jump right in and get started. The percussive fingerstyle technique basically allows you to become your own little band. What do I mean by that? On the one hand, you're playing percussive hits, which already makes a drummer unnecessary. On the other hand, you separate the bass from the melody, which means you now have 3 different ways to emphasize your playing. This works especially well when you're playing completely on your own and there are no other musicians around. For example, you can use this technique in the evening around the campfire to add much more variety to your playing instead of just strumming chords all the time. Another benefit is that this exercise is great for practicing your scales and chords. Practicing scales and chords is absolutely essential for every musician, especially before you start working with fingerings and scales and single notes. That way you always know which chords fit best with which fingerings. Before we take a closer look at the technique itself, I'm going to play a very simple drum rhythm for you, which we'll then analyze in a bit more detail. Here's the rhythm. This rhythm forms the foundation for our technique, which I'll explain in just a moment. I've also visualized it graphically here, and if you look at it, you can see that we're at 70 BPM. You can also see that we have a kick drum on beat 1 and on the 8th note after it, a snare on beat 2, then another kick on the next 8th note. Beat 3 is completely left out in terms of accents. And on the end of 3 there's another kick drum, and on beat 4 we have a snare again. The reason I'm going into this much detail is that the kick and the snare give us excellent points of reference when we later combine our bass line, our melody line and the percussive hits with our bar chords. Now we're going to take this one simple beat and I'll explain exactly what you play and where. First we're going to take a very simple C major bar chord on the 3rd fret rooted on the A string. This chord should obviously be solid beforehand, so make sure you practice it for a while. Pluck through it and check that all the notes ring out clearly. For every kick drum hit, we can take the root note, the bass note up here, and pluck it with our thumb. For the melody, which in this simple example also falls on some of the kick drum hits, we simply pluck these 3 strings with the 3 fingers of our right hand: index, middle, and ring finger. That means we already have a bass hit and a quote-unquote melody hit, which in this case is played together with the 2nd kick drum hit. Next, we add the percussive hits, which replace the snare. If you listen to a snare drum with that sharp, high crack, what we're doing here with the percussive hits sounds very similar. So how exactly does this technique work? You strike the lower 3 strings with your thumb and the lower part of the palm of your hand. This creates that clicking sound, which you can now play on every snare hit. In our example, the snare hits are on beats 2 and 4. So if we listen to the groove again, and really reduce everything to the absolute basics, I'll simply emphasize the C bass note on beat 1 and place percussive hits on beat 2 and beat 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can practice this for a while using just one chord to get used to the technique, to practice counting along and to always keep an eye on beats 2 and 4 where the percussive hits happen. Now if we take this beat and also add the melody, it sounds like this. Let's break that down again. On beat 1, where the kick drum is, I play the bass note C. Then the first melody comes in directly on the 1 and, where there's another kick drum hit. Next comes beat 2, where we hear the snare. Right after that, there's another bass hit, which I again play using the bass note C. That takes care of 1 and 2 and. Nothing happens on beat 3, which means you don't have to play anything there. But on the end of 3, there's another kick drum hit, where I place the melody notes again. Finally, we have a snare hit on beat 4, and that completes the entire pattern. So when we finally count it out, we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Repeat this a few times, count it out loud, and then try it with several different chords. For example, I'll now play a chord progression similar to the intro. I'll start with C major, then move to D minor, then to G major, and finally to F major. 3 and 4 and. Try out your own chord progressions, because if you've practiced your C major scale and chords well, as shown here in this graphic, you can already get very creative with it. Take the simple pattern and gradually go through all the chords, and after a while, you'll definitely come up with some really nice and interesting chord progressions. Now let's add a small variation to the pattern. This time, I'm also placing a bass accent on the and of 4, which we can reinforce with an additional C in our first chord. Let's listen to that. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And now let's play it together. This one extra accent on the and of 4 makes everything feel a bit cooler, especially before chord changes, because it adds a small bass melody. So what does that sound like? Here's an example. So you can alternate between these two patterns sometimes, playing just one bass accent or playing two identical patterns in a row. Two identical patterns in a row means once on the and of 4 and then again on the following beat 1. Here's the alternating version once more. The more you work with drum rhythms and this technique, the more your own interesting variations will naturally come to you. From time to time, you should simply listen to different drum grooves on YouTube, or if you know any drummers or percussionists, play together with them a bit and adapt this technique to the groove they're playing. These basic rules regarding snare hits, bass, and melody accents can later be expanded endlessly and applied even to more complex rhythms. Here's another example where I'm not only playing the bass note that corresponds to the root, but also adding the fifth. That means you can play something like this, which gives you a bit more bass melody. Here are a few chord changes with that approach. Feel free to practice this first using only the C major scale. Once you feel confident and have played a few variations, simply move on to a different scale. As I said, this is a really great exercise not only for rhythm but also for practicing music theory in the form of harmonized scales. I used to do it like this. Every week I picked a new scale and learned it in chords first and later also in single notes. After just a few weeks you end up with a really solid overview on the fretboard, different scales, and in this case also rhythmic nuances. If you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate a like and a subscription. I'll see you again in the next video and I wish you lots of fun and success with your guitar playing. See you soon.